Okay, let's get right into it. We are diving deep into a North London derby that, well, it really did deliver, not just spectacle and goals, but a result that might just be one of those seismic shifts you see at the top of the Premier League table.
It was absolutely huge.
We're talking, of course, about Arsenal's emphatic, comprehensive 4-1 victory over Tottenham Hotspur. And honestly, that scoreline, it barely scratches the surface of the dominance we actually saw on the pitch.
It really doesn't. It was an absorbing, if, let's be honest, a pretty brutal afternoon of football for one half of North London. And you're spot on. The score doesn't tell the whole story.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to go beyond the highlights.
Exactly. We've got the full BBC match report, we've got the detailed forensic statistics, and they are truly damning for Spurs. And we've got the commentary from both Mikel Arteta and a visibly distraught Thomas Frank.
And maybe most importantly, we've got the raw, unfiltered emotional reaction from both sets of supporters, pulled from their online discussions. We're going to unpack everything.
Because this wasn't just about 3 points, was it? It was a statement. We need to look at how Arsenal cemented their position 6 points clear at the top. Yeah. It's position 1 with 29 points.
Which is a huge cushion at this stage.
It is. And on the flip side, why this defeat was, in their own manager's words, so extremely painful for Tottenham, they're still stuck down in 9th with only 18 points. This was a loss of face, not just a loss of points.
Right. Let's start by walking through the day itself. Inside the Emirates Stadium, attendance was a packed 60,345. And you could feel it from the start, couldn't you? The crowd was electric.
Oh, absolutely. They sensed something was in the air.
So final score 4-1. Arsenal were already leading 2-0 at halftime. And the reports all emphasize that Arsenal's dominance, it was there from the very first whistle, but it did take them a little while to actually break through.
Yeah, and that patience was, I think, the key narrative of that first half. You see, Spurs manager Thomas Frank, he opted for a really surprising, and as it turned out, disastrous tactical setup.
The 5 at the back, the 3-4-2-1.
Exactly. And that was a clear attempt to just, prioritize defensive solidity. He was trying to nullify the space where Arsenal's key players operate, crowding the midfield, forcing them wide.
But isn't that a dangerous game to play in a derby? I mean, sitting that deep and just handing control to a team like Arsenal, especially at home?
It's incredibly risky. The deal is, if you sit that deep, you have to be absolutely flawless at the back.
Yeah.
And your moments on the counter, they have to be clinical. Tottenham, well, they achieved neither of those things.
So for the first 35 minutes or so, Arsenal were just probing, facing this really low block.
But the pressure just kept building and building. It was relentless, and eventually that structure cracked. And when it did, the goals came very, very quickly.
The breakthrough finally arrives in the 36th minute. Let's talk about their opener from Leandro Trossard.
It was a lovely goal, yeah. But it was also a direct product of that sustained pressure. The assist came from Mikel Merino, who I think was one of the real unsung heroes on the day.
He was excellent.
He was. He found this little pocket of space, and his through ball just sliced right through that 5-man defensive line. It wasn't just a pass. It was like a surgical incision. It completely isolated Trossard, and he finished it clinically past Vicario. That pass was the moment of quality they needed.
And then, just 5 minutes later, before Spurs could even really process going 1-0 down, the second goal hits them. And this was Eberechi Eze's moment. Pure individual brilliance.
It really was. Eze just decided, you know what, I'm going to do this myself. He got the ball, beat 2 Spurs players on the edge of the box with just, incredible pace and close control, and then he just drilled it low and hard past Vicario.
And that move all started with Declan Rice winning the ball back high up the pitch, didn't it?
It did. Rice's ability to win those duels and immediately turn defense into attack was just instrumental all afternoon. So, going in 2-0 down at halftime, having had 0 shots, you can only imagine the mood in that Spurs dressing room. It must have been bordering on panic.
So you mentioned that failed formation. Thomas Frank, he had to do something at halftime. What was the tactical gamble he took?
Well, he admitted later, didn't he, that the formation was his call and it hadn't worked. So his priority was to get some attacking intent into the team. He sacrificed a defender, Kevin Danso, who looked completely bewildered, and brought on the more attack-minded Xavi Simons.
So a shift to a more conventional 4-3-3 or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. The idea was to get Simons into dangerous areas and just try to relieve some of that immense pressure.
So that change was supposed to provide a route back into the game, but the response from Arsenal was just immediate and brutal.
Instantaneous is the word. Just 35 seconds into the second half, This was the moment that Thomas Frank later said sealed Spurs' fate.
35 seconds.
35 seconds. Arsenal get possession pretty much from the kickoff, move it quickly, and Eze finds himself on the edge of the area again. This time, he just curls a sublime left-footed strike right into the bottom corner. The timing of it. Just after a tactical rejig, it turned a bad situation into an absolute disaster for Spurs.
That must have just crushed the traveling fans, and the players for that matter. It's almost impossible to come back from 3-0 in a derby.
It is. I mean, when your manager makes a big change like that and you can see before anyone's even had a chance to settle, the message is clear. Your effort or your system is just fundamentally broken. It strips away any hope you might have had.
And yet, amid all that wreckage, Spurs did manage one sort of fleeting moment of quality. That consolation goal from Richarlison in the 55th minute.
Yeah, and this is why football is so strange sometimes. Richarlison scores what the match report rightly called a wonder goal. It came from absolutely nowhere.
From about 35, 40 yards out.
At least. He just saw David Raya a little bit off his line and executed this magnificent chip. It just looped over him, dipped perfectly under the bar. It was spectacular. But you have to file it under, an act of almost desperation.
A complete outlier.
Completely. Because, as we'll see in the stats, it just masked a total failure to create anything else. But for a moment, it quieted the Emirates and made it 3-1.
But you always felt Arsenal were just playing with them at that point, and it wasn't long before they restored the order of things.
Indeed. The final nail in the coffin. 76th minute. Eze, who was clearly having the time of his life, completes his hat-trick. Another expert finish that restored the 3-goal cushion, and that was that. A 4-1 thrashing. It felt like a mismatch from the very first minute to the last.
Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting.
Correct.
We can move from the story of the game to the cold, hard numbers. And the statistics, as you said, they paint a picture of just utter, absolute control.
Precisely. If you thought it looked like dominance on the screen, the metrics confirm it was basically a humiliation. When you actually break down the data, it's genuinely shocking how little Tottenham managed to do.
Okay, let's start with possession. It was 57.2% for Arsenal, 42.8% for Spurs. Not a crazy imbalance, but it points to that sustained pressure.
Correct. But it's what Arsenal did with that possession that's so damning for Spurs. Look at the shot count. Arsenal had 17 shots. Tottenham had a measly 3.
17-3, wow.
And of those, Arsenal got 8 on target, Spurs only got 2. So Arsenal were consistently getting into dangerous areas, creating proper chances. Spurs were basically just having to pop from distance.
And I think the stat that really shows Arsenal setting up camp in their half is the touches in the opposition box.
This is the killer blow right here. Arsenal, 27 touches inside the Spurs penalty area. Tottenham, across the full 90 minutes, managed just 4. 4. Just think about that. For most of the game, Arsenal were launching wave after wave of attack right on Vicario's doorstep. Spurs, meanwhile, they couldn't even get near Arsenal's box. 4 touches is. It's a non-existent attacking plan.
Okay, let's get to the big one. The one that requires a bit of an explanation but tells the whole story. Expected goals, or XG.
We have to spend some time on this because it is the most revealing statistic of the entire match. It basically assigns a probability to every shot. Arsenal's XG finished at 1.88.
Right. And they scored 4, which shows incredible finishing.
World-class finishing, exactly. But the real shocker, the colossal number here is Tottenham's XG. It was 0.07.
0.07. That is statistically nothing. In a Premier League derby, what does that number actually mean?
It means they created nothing of any substance at all. To give you some context, a really low probability shot from 35 yards, like Richarlison's, might be 0.01 or 0.02 XG. A penalty is about 0.76 XG. Tottenham's entire output for the whole game was 0.07.
So it's an offensive black hole.
Completely.
Yeah.
And crucially, this isn't just a one-off for Spurs this season, is it?
No, and that's what makes it a systemic problem. The source material confirms they've now recorded the 2 lowest XG totals in any Premier League game this season. This 0.07 against Arsenal and a similarly awful 0.1 against Chelsea a few weeks ago.
It's a recurring, deeply worrying lack of creativity. And if we isolate that Richarlison goal, that spectacular moment, that single shot had an extremely low XG.
Probably about 0.02, 0.03 at a push.
At a push, yeah. So if you strip that away, their XG from open play, so chances they created through normal buildup, was a microscopic 0.0694. Essentially, all of their threat came from one singular, desperate, spectacular effort.
And the most damning fact of all, supporting those accusations of cowardice from the fans we'll get to later, Tottenham had 0 shots in the entire first half.
0. In a North London derby, that is nothing short of tactical surrender. You can't even register a blocked shot or a weak header. It shows they were either too afraid to commit men forward or Arsenal's press just completely suffocated them.
Let's look at some of the other metrics, because Arsenal's superiority is everywhere.
It is. Final third passes. Arsenal completed 85. Spurs completed just 22. So Arsenal were consistently getting the ball into dangerous areas. Spurs couldn't even find a teammate up the pitch.
And the physical intensity, the distance covered, Arsenal ran nearly 8% more.
That's a huge gap. It works out to about 9 kilometers of extra running. That is a massive difference in intensity and commitment. It speaks directly to what Thomas Frank was saying about not winning enough duels. They were just outrun.
And finally, the defensive stats showed just how pegged back Spurs were.
They were under siege. Spurs had to make 33 clearances, Arsenal only 18. That shows one team is desperately just hoofing the ball away from their own goal. And while they made a similar number of tackles, Arsenal's success rate was way higher, 76.2% to Spurs' 57.1%.
So Arsenal were winning the ball cleanly, and Spurs were just struggling to get near them.
Exactly. Every single metric points to a massive gulf, tactically, physically, and mentally. That .07 XG, that is the number that is going to haunt Spurs fans for a long, long time.
You absolutely cannot talk about this game without dedicating proper time to the individual who just stole the show. Eberechi Eze. I mean, what a day for him.
A truly sensational performance.
Yeah.
A 9.5 rating, man of the match, and deservedly so. To become only the 4th player ever to score a North London derby hat-trick that puts you in legendary company straight away.
He was just clinical, dynamic, fearless. We saw his whole range of talent.
We did. The individual dribble for his first, the ruthless finish for his second just after halftime, and then that predatory strike to complete the hat-trick.
And I loved his interview afterwards. So humble, but also so hungry. He said, special day for me and my family, but then he added that little line, I probably should have scored 4, to be honest.
That's the mentality Arteta has instilled, isn't it? But the full emotional weight of this performance lies in the irony, the delicious, painful irony for Tottenham.
Oh, yes, the transfer twist.
The transfer twist. The source material is explicit. Eze was very close to signing for Tottenham this summer. Arsenal swooped to beat Tottenham to get him.
That detail just adds layers of agony for the Spurs fans. The player who was meant to be theirs is the one who comes back and absolutely destroys them.
It's the ultimate salt in the wound. Imagine being a Spurs fan, watching the player your club failed to sign deliver a hat-trick against you in the biggest game of the season. It's a narrative that's going to become part of the rivalry's folklore.
And Jamie Carragher's comments after the match were huge. He said Eze looks like a player who can make the difference for them and they can go on and win the title.
And that elevates him, doesn't it? From just a good signing to a potential game changer. But while Eze gets the headlines, we have to talk about the engine room that allowed him to do that.
Declan Rice.
An 8 rating, described as built for occasions like these. His energy, his duels won, his quick transitions, he provided the platform for everything.
And the other guys, the supporting cast, were brilliant too. Trossard and Marino.
Absolutely. Trossard, another 8. He's just Mr. Reliable, isn't he? Gets the opener, provides an assist. And Mikel Merino, with his 7.5 rating, he was the one who unlocked that defense in the first place. Tireless work. It just shows the depth Arsenal have now.
So let's switch over to the managers. How did Mikel Arteta see it?
Arteta was, as you'd expect, delighted, but still very focused. He said he enjoyed every minute of it, and he praised the team's intensity, their hunger, and their preparation. He made a point of saying they'd won their duels, which is a direct contrast to what Frank said.
And he also mentioned they'd specifically prepared for that 5-at-the-back system.
He did, which shows you the level of detail his staff go into. He also made sure to praise the squad depth, pointing out how well Hincapie stepped in for the injured Gabriel. But his overriding message was, enjoy it, but now we go game by game. Bayern Munich is next.
Right. And now, Thomas Frank, he had to face the music after what he called a very difficult afternoon.
Frank was very contrite, but his comments were really revealing. He took full responsibility for the formation. He said, I always take responsibility for my decisions.
But he didn't stop there, did he?
No, and this is the crucial bit. He basically shifted the blame from the tactics to the player's application. He said, and this is a direct quote, if you don't win enough duels or aren't aggressive enough, it doesn't matter what formation you play.
That is a manager publicly questioning his team's mentality.
It is. He called it the most painful defeat of the season, and he issued a direct apology to the fans for the lack of competitiveness.
And the individual player ratings from the journalists, they've really backed that up. It wasn't just a system failure.
Not at all. Sammy Mockbull's ratings were damning. Kevin Danso, the defender who was subbed at halftime, got a 4.5. He was bewildered. Mickey Van de Ven, usually so solid, got a 5.5 and looked uncomfortable throughout.
And the fan ratings were even worse, weren't they?
Oh, they were brutal. The BBC fan rater average tells you everything. Vicario, the keeper, got a 4.46. And look at Richarlison. Despite scoring one of the goals of the season, his fan rating was just 4.22.
That tells you everything.
It does. The fans saw that beyond that one moment of magic, he did very little other than that. They agreed with Frank. The problem was effort and aggression, not just the manager's tactics.
So this is where we get the raw, unfiltered view of what a 4-1 derby thrashing actually feels like. We're moving from the tactical chart to the heart of it all. Arsenal's world of euphoria versus Tottenham's world of, well, existential dread.
The contrast is just night and day. On Arsenal's subreddit, Our Gunners, it is pure, unadulterated joy. The collective feeling is just this immense self-belief.
What were the main themes coming out of the Arsenal fan base?
A real sense of unstoppable momentum. You see phrases like, "This club is special right now," and "This season we are cooking." There's a feeling this result wasn't a one-off, but a confirmation that this team is the real deal.
And the Eze factor must have been the ultimate source of, well, schadenfreude.
It was the definitive theme of the celebration. They were absolutely reveling in it. The comments were ruthless. One said, "That's gotta hurt for Spuds. The player you thought you had 100% signed goes on and does that to you."
Oh, that's brutal.
It is. Another post was joking that the whole transfer was just a piece of theater orchestrated by Arsenal to maximize the derby humiliation. It's such a powerful narrative for them.
And the post-match scenes sounded like a proper party.
Absolutely electric. Fans were sharing videos of the players dancing on the pitch to Freed from Desire and Chase the Sun. Saka dancing was mentioned over and over. The atmosphere was described as bouncing and special, total unity.
But what's interesting is, even in that moment of euphoria, there was still some constructive criticism, which suggests the bar is very high now.
That's the sign of a serious fan base, isn't it? They're thinking about the title, not just one win. There were real concerns about Arteta making his subs too late. They were worried about risking key players like Calafiori and Hincapié with Bayern and Chelsea coming up.
And the Richarlison goal.
Universally seen as the only blemish on a perfect day. Some were even joking about it, saying it's typical of Spurs to only score meaningless wonder goals.
Right, let's cross the river to the Tottenham fan thread, Borkois. The mood there sounds like a complete psychological breakdown.
Catastrophic is the only word for it. The immediate reaction wasn't just sadness, it was fury and demands for immediate change. The Frank-out sentiment surfaced aggressively and instantly.
And they were drawing comparisons to some pretty dark times for the club.
Oh yeah, the phrase Nuno all over again was everywhere. And you need to understand why that's so painful for a Spurs fan.
Explain that for us.
The Nuno Espirito Santo era was just characterized by this defensive, risk-averse, incredibly dull football. There was a total disconnect between the fans and the team. It was a period with no ambition, no identity, and no fight. So when they say Nuno all over again, that's the ultimate insult. They're accusing Frank of installing a cowardly style of football.
So the frustration wasn't just about losing, but the way they lost, the perceived surrender.
Precisely. The accusations were incredibly harsh. Cowardice management, playing with fear. One fan put it perfectly, I thought. He said, "We made a team that has made deadball their core identity look like creative masterminds, just by sitting off them."
And if the tactics were the bullet, the Eze transfer saga was the salt in the wound.
It was inescapable. It kept coming up, fueling all this anger about the club's incompetence. One fan wrote, "The player who was 90% signed for us and jumped ship scored a hat-trick on us. It's just confirmation that their own club's failure directly led to their rival's success."
And there's a real fear this isn't just one bad result, but the start of a mid-campaign free fall.
That's the immediate fear. They're looking at the upcoming fixtures, PSG, Fulham, Newcastle, and they're terrified. They see it as make or break for Frank, and Vicario's post-match comments apologizing for the team not showing fight, that just confirmed everything the fans were feeling.
So let's zoom out. What does this all really mean for the Premier League title race and for the future of Thomas Frank?
Well, for Arsenal, the implications are just huge. They now have a 6-point cushion over Chelsea, 7 over Man City, And the sources confirm this is Arsenal's biggest lead at this stage of any Premier League season. So that's enormous psychologically.
And their form is incredible, which reinforces that this wasn't just a fluke.
Not at all. 5 wins in their last 6. And the Emirates has become a fortress for this fixture. They've scored in the last 26 home league games against Spurs. It's systemic domination.
But the reality check is immediate, isn't it? The schedule gets tough right away.
It's a defining week. They go away to Bayern Munich in the Champions League, then away to Chelsea. Maintaining this level through those 2 games will be the real test of their title credentials. Arteta is right to say game by game.
And for Tottenham, it's a full-blown crisis. They're stuck in 9th. Their form is terrible. WL, WL, DL. So inconsistent.
The crisis isn't just about the results. It's about the broken relationship between the manager and the fans. They see him prioritizing defensive solidity before creativity, and the results aren't even coming. The stats back up the fans' worries. The low shot average, the .07 XG, these are fundamental flaws.
And like Arsenal, they face a massive European test straight after this.
A baptism by fire. They have to travel to PSG on Wednesday? There's no time to lick their wounds. So the big question for the ownership is, do they stand by a manager when the results are poor, the style's unpopular, and the fans are calling for his head?
Let's just touch on the historical context one last time, because this really does feel like a power shift.
The stats show it clearly. Arsenal have now won 5 of the last 6 league games against Spurs, including the last 3 in a row. That's their longest winning run against them since the late 1980s. It's a sustained shift in power in North London.
And finally, that key note about who wasn't on the pitch for Spurs.
This was the first North London derby since September 2014, without either Harry Kane or Son Heung-min playing for Spurs.
And that illuminates the massive hole in their attack.
A massive hole. Kane and Son scored a huge percentage of their goals against Arsenal. Their absence is immense, and the fact the team could only muster a .07 XG shows that the current system is failing spectacularly to compensate for that loss of generational talent.
What a monumental week. The deep dive has confirmed Arsenal's overwhelming dominance tactically and statistically. That 1.88 XG versus 0.07 XG is just staggering. We saw Eberechi Eze deliver a star-making performance, and we've confirmed the immense pressure on Thomas Frank.
It leaves you with a really provocative thought, doesn't it? Given Tottenham's massive Champions League game against PSG and this intense fan pressure, does this performance suggest that Thomas Frank's system is just fundamentally incompatible with the club's aspirations? Is this defensive pragmatism, which yields just .07 XG, actually viable? And if that lack of fight we saw confirms a deep fracture in the dressing room, how quickly will the ownership move before this mid-campaign freefall becomes completely irrecoverable? That's the question hanging over Spurs right now.